All right, Ray, check this out. So we've got Honda that is getting sued by California dealers, and here's what Honda wants to do. They want to have another company where they can partner with, looks like Sony here, where they can actually sell cars direct to consumer. We've had Ford that has tried to skirt some of these things before, or at least showed some willingness to. Um, Here's the thing: there's a lot of money that's tied up into these dealer associations. And as far as the lawmakers go that actually put these franchise laws in place, there are a lot of these congressmen, congresswomen that have families that are tied up into a lot of these dealerships. So I have a feeling it's going to be very tough for a lot of these manufacturers that even if they do express a way for them to want to actually sell direct to consumer, it's going to be very tough for them to do that.
Well, it will be in California, according to
Yeah.
the franchise laws in California. I believe it was in 2023 that they passed unanimously a law that stated that if you have any connection to um, a automotive manufacturing concern that is already doing business as a franchise dealer network in the state, that you can't then come into the state with an affiliated type of concern and try and sell direct to the customer. So it seems to me, and I am not a lawyer and I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but it would seem to me that if the name of the company that wants to sell these new EVs in California is Honda Sony, well, Honda sounds like an automotive manufacturer that already does business in California with a franchise dealer network. If that's the case, and the dealers are bringing suit, I don't see how Honda Sony wins this so that they can sell direct in California.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I mean, here's the thing: we had what Scout tried to do the same thing.
Yes.
There's so much money. Like I'm a part of I'm a used car dealer. I'm a part of a dealer association that are in the North Carolina and South Carolina, and our dues are like $350 a year or something like that. The only reason I'm a part of it at all is just so I can get updates concerning law changes or whatever. It's very beneficial for me to have that. But I can tell you, if only me is paying $350 a year for this, think about how many dealers that are across North Carolina and South Carolina. And this is just a state association. There's a national association, which I'm not a part of,
Yes.
but all these dealers across the nation are paying these crazy amounts of money to this association every single year. They're very well funded. Then on top of that, they're going to have money that's coming from other places to be able to keep all this legislation exactly how it is right now, because dealers don't want anything to change.
Well, why would dealers want anything to change? You know, owning a dealership in most cases can be extremely profitable. Many dealerships every year change hands. Some dealerships that change hands, they change hands because the current ownership is out of touch with their community or with how the industry operates today, and they're losing a ton of money. And then the facility changes hand, a new owner comes in, and all of a sudden, when there's processes in place, um, things work, things become profitable. If everybody understands how we're supposed to operate, you can turn around a store that's losing money into a very profitable business in a short period of time. So why would dealers ever want to change that? They don't. They don't. Like when it comes to Scout, which is affiliated with VW, although VW says it's a separate entity. Um, yeah, but I'm sure if you follow the money's going to lead back to VW at some point. So you can't, at least in California, you can't be in the automotive business of selling vehicles through a franchise network and then come in and create an entirely new entity and say, oh no, this entity is going to sell direct to consumers. The dealers in that state, and the suit was brought by the Honda and Acura dealers, which I think if I remember the number correctly, it was either 141 dealers or
161
or 161.
Yeah.
The total number of dealers that are part of the California Dealer Association is 1,400 dealers. Now, let's say in California, dues are a tad bit more expensive than in North Carolina. What do you think would be fair in California? $1,000?
That would be my guess. I mean, anything's
Okay.
going to be at least double what I'm paying here.
Okay. $1,000 times 1,400 dealers. That's a lot of money, isn't it? Yep. Isn't that like 14? Is that's like 1.4 million, or is that 14?
Well, see, I'm the association that I'm in is an independent dealer association.
Okay.
So we're talking about franchises here. So it's not going to be $1,000. It might be $10,000 that they're paying a year for this thing.
But my point is, they just
a lot of money.
Through dues, it's a lot of money,
yeah.
and that money is utilized through lobbying efforts to craft how laws in the state of California are written, just like it is in every other state, and just like how it is in Washington, D.C. on a national level. The amount of money spent by associations of any type is astounding as to how much they can spend in order to craft legislation that benefits the lobbying group. We have in this country the best politicians that money can buy, and in many cases, the best laws that money could buy through those politicians. And excuse me, it's not always going to be in the best interest of the public. It's going to be in the best interest of those who had the deepest pockets to buy as much influence as they could.
So let's go. Excuse me. Let's talk about this direct to consumer thing, because there's a lot of people out there that think direct to consumer is just going to be the way to go. People are going to save money. We need to cut out the middleman. And I've heard you talk about this a little bit, but I think we might disagree a little bit on this. But I want to hear your stance on direct to consumer, whether or not it would be a good thing or a bad thing for the consumer overall.
I don't know. How about that for an honest answer? I don't know. It seems to work for Tesla. It seems to work for Lucid. So they can sell their 3,000 cars a quarter. It seems to work for Rivian. So they can sell, their 10,000 cars a quarter, whatever it is. Is it good or bad for the consumer? I think when it comes to service, it can be bad because there's just not as many service locations that are available to people if and when they need them. Is it really going to be cheaper? I don't know that it'll be cheaper. There'll be less hassles involved. Tesla makes it really easy to buy or lease one of their vehicles online. Is it cheaper? Not necessarily. You can't argue with them over the price. The price is the price, and what you're paying for is the convenience of not having to negotiate. So if we get to a situation in my mind where all the manufacturers could just sell direct to consumers, my suspicion would be is that consumers ultimately would end up paying more than they would had the vehicles gone to a franchise dealer, and then that franchise dealer who now owns that inventory is responsible for turning that back into cash. They're going to be more motivated than the manufacturer would be.
In my mind, I feel like 20, 30 years from now, the car market's going to look 100% different than what it looks like right now. We've had this dealership model for a very, very long time, and we're already seeing disruptions in the market. I just recorded a video this morning talking about disruptions that are happening in the market right now. We have Amazon that's coming into the space. Now, obviously, they're just dipping their toes into it right now, but it's not going to be long before Amazon, some massive corporation or whatever, is going to figure out a different way to make it a little bit easier for the consumer and then be able to make money out of this car market. We have Carvana that's changed the way that people have bought cars over the last 10 years or so. You got CarMax now that's trying to sell more cars online, because I feel like they know that the brick and mortar type of dealership model is changing, and we're seeing some of the stuff. We have Tesla that's coming out with robo taxis, that there's going to be a lot of young people out there that don't even want to own a car, so they just want to hit a button and somebody pick them up. They want to pay a subscription thing. That's going to be a different part of the market. Cars are getting so unaffordable that there are more people looking at leasing than they are even owning, so because they don't want to fix the cars. I think there's so much going on in the car market, so much changing in the car market, that I think this old school mentality of, okay, there's a dealership, you have to come to the dealership, you have to pay money to the dealership, you have to pay for whatever they want to add on to the car. I do think that the customer is going to want a different thing, and it's not going to be these legacy brands, Ford, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, Toyota, whatever, that's going to be able to carry on until the next, because these dealers, they don't want to change how they're doing things. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of these smaller companies that are popping up that are doing direct to consumer, that see a model like Tesla work, and they're going to be other companies that come along, and it's not going to be the legacy brands. It's going to be the new companies that I think it's going to look completely different in 20, 25 years from now, where the consumer, I think the dealership model, and I'm a dealer, I'm a car dealer, and I think my way of business, the way that I make money, is not going to exist in 15, 20 years.
I tend to agree with you in that I think that there is going to be changes in the automotive industry, in the landscape of the automotive industry. You know, we sell cars the way we do in this country because, well, that's the way we've always sold cars. Now, there's approximately 18,000 new car franchise dealerships in this country. I'm gonna guess and say that I don't know, 10,000 of the 15,000. Oh hell, that's too low. I'm going to guess and say that 15,000 of the 18,000 do it in a manner that is not customer friendly, and that maybe scattered throughout the country, there's 3,000 new car dealers, if that many.
There might be 3.
Whatever. we know of some that do it in a much more customer centric fashion, and I think at a certain point the dealerships are going to have to adapt to doing it in a more consumer friendly manner. That the idea of bait and switch and deceptive sales practices is going to have to end, for a couple reasons. One, it's just the wrong way to go about running your business, to base it on deceit, okay, and bait and switch. I mean, who wakes up every day and says, you know what, I want to cheat the hell out of my customers? I mean, why? Who would want to do that? And yes, I know, folks, I was in retail automotive for 43 years. Doesn't mean for 43 years I was trying to figure out a way to be deceptive to customers every day. I was not. I think ultimately it should be as close to one price selling as it can be. And here's how I think we get there. Every manufacturer gets a copy of their franchise dealer's financial statements every month, broken down by model, how many they sold, what the total amount of profit was, and from all that they can extrapolate what the average transaction prices, either regionally or nationally, were for each model. Once you've extrapolated that information, what is preventing you from saying, okay, we're going to change the way we do business. We know the average transaction price for X is $32,513, and that is going to be the selling price of that vehicle nationally. I don't care if you go to the store in Seattle or you go to the store in Miami. The price is going to be the 35,315, whatever the hell the number was. But that to me could be a way to do it, where you know what the average transaction price is, and just set your pricing that way. We know there's a window sticker. We know there's a manufacturer suggested retail price. Well, instead of having a suggested retail price, have a retail price, and have that retail price based on what the average transactions have been. And I think if we get to that, it'll make life a little better.
And I feel like in most retail scenarios, that's kind of what happens. You have MSRP, and that's kind of what it sells for, right? So it's just, I feel like dealerships, the way that they act right now, they're not going to allow that to happen, especially with what we're going to have some kind of law that shakes things up. And then if it does shake things up, then I see a lot of dealers just getting out of the market, because if they go to a place where, okay, well, I was able to charge $1,200 for a dock fee, and now I can only charge $100. I could charge $5.99 for nitrogen, which is just basically air that I'm putting in these tires, and now I can't do any of that stuff. Well, how am I going to make money? And in that case, they have to. The only way they're going to be able to do it is volume, and that's going to be tough for some of these dealers.
Well, volume and parts and service.
Yeah,
if the selling price is set, then the way you make money is parts and service and finance. Now, I'm not sitting here suggesting that we shouldn't have some guidelines on how finance departments work at dealerships. We know that on average, many dealerships will mark up the interest rate on a loan through the indirect lending, typically around 2 percentage points. And the reason they do that is the extra interest that will have been collected during the life of that loan. The dealership typically collects 70% of that, and the bank collects 30% of it. So the bank's happy because they're making 30% more than what they had envisioned. The dealership's happy because, well, they just found 70% of some additional gross profit that they now have. So there are ways for dealerships to continue to make money, but we would have to have better controls on how that is. Maybe you can only mark the buy rate up 1 point, so that there'd still be some extra money to be had. You would have to have the same price for any of the protection packages that are offered in a finance office, the same price for every customer, regardless of who they are, or regardless of what their credit score is. Because one of the issues that we see a lot in finance departments is when the finance manager has the ability to set the price based on the customer's enthusiasm for the product, that some people end up paying a lot more for the same product than somebody else. That doesn't seem particularly fair, especially to those who might not know better. So I think there would have to be some guidelines, but I think there would be ways for dealerships to still make a lot of money. Will they be able to make as much money as perhaps they're making today? I don't know, but I think they could still be profitable.
Oh, they would definitely be profitable, but I don't know for a lot of them if they're just in it just to be profitable. They're making a lot of money. I feel like if a lot of these margins get cut from what they're already making, it's going to be something that a lot of them aren't going to want to continue to do. The thing that I worry about too is for them to make the same kind of money that they're making right now in this kind of this theoretical fairyland ordeal that we're talking about here, is that okay, they're going to have to push out a ton of volume. And I think as high as the prices have gone on a lot of these vehicles, it kind of limits what kind of volume they can do anyway, even if they sell them for exactly what they're getting them for. it's still going to limit the amount of volume that they can do, because the amount that these vehicles cost back in 2019 and what we're seeing now in a lot of these brands is what, 40% more than what they were selling them for then. That, and wages didn't go up 40% in the last 6 years. So we're really going to start. Nope, my phone's going off.
I hate when that happens.
All right, yeah, just keep going.
Well, I would think that we're going to see the volume. I mean, I come from a time when most new car departments weren't particularly profitable. In many cases, a lot of new car departments were the loss leader at a dealership. So even if they're not making a lot of money per new car sold, they have opportunity to pick up some gross in the finance department. If they do their jobs well, they can hold on to these customers for parts and service work. They would be able to make money selling used cars. So there's still ways for them to be able to make a lot of money. And I get that many dealers are exceedingly greedy. I get that. I often sit here and I wonder, okay, at what point does somebody who's very wealthy say, okay, that's enough? And what I've come to the conclusion of that is this: there's never a point where they say that's enough.
Right.
That's the sad reality, where you can make so damn much money you could never spend it all. And so at a certain point, I don't know what the point of all that is, other than to be able to say, well, I'm richer than you are. And I don't know, maybe there needs to be attitude adjustments or things of that nature, to where we can look at ourselves and say, I'm comfortable. How much more comfortable do I need to be?
Well, I got the biggest question right here. So if we go direct to consumer with all these brands, all these dealerships go out of business.
Yes.
Well, then what's going to happen to all the dealers? What are they going to do? What industry are they going to move to go gouge people out of their money? What's the next one?
Furniture business.
Furniture business.
Furniture business and appliances. There you have.
Or they can all become YouTubers. That's the route we took.
Yeah. There will be somebody that has a huge dealership that sits on 14, 15 acres of property, and they'll take that, like maybe they have a 100,000 square foot showroom or facility of some, and maybe what they'll do. This should be in the central part of the country, so it's easy for everybody to get to. And maybe they will convert their buildings into YouTube production facilities, and all the YouTubers in America can go to these various locations and have production facilities already set up for them. And so all that real estate won't go to waste. What do you think about that?
I don't think it's going to work, because I can tell you, you do stuff on YouTube. I do stuff. I don't like to call myself a YouTuber, but we make things and put them on YouTube. I'm in my upstairs bedroom, and I think you're in your condo. So I don't think that's something that's needed. We get by just fine with what we got.
I am in my living room. Yes, indeed. But it was just a thought, that where you there is in Atlantic City, one of the piers that goes out into the ocean, at one time was like a mall, okay, and it pooped the bed. I mean, it just, every store closed, and a gentleman bought it, and he's actually turning it into TV and film studios, so that films and television shows and things like that can actually be produced and shot there. So there are other uses for some of these real estate that would become available if dealerships went out of business. We just have to figure out what they are.
Here's a good question. Would the dealership just become the official authorized parts and repair for brands? I know for Tesla, who goes to direct to consumer, they have all these service centers where you can buy cars too, but maybe we have just Ford service centers that open up everywhere. We have Toyota service centers that just open up everywhere. And this, listen, people. So this is not happening anytime soon, and it might not ever happen. So we're just posing theories right here. What I think is probably going to happen is that there's going to be a shift in the market, and there are going to be other brands that come in and take over, and eventually Ford and all these legacy brands, they'll go under when the dealership model and the franchise model just doesn't work, because Ford makes a lot of money from their dealers. They wholesale all their vehicles to their dealers. That's how they make money. So when the dealership model goes away because there's some other thing, the brands are probably going to go away too. So that's the way it's going to work, I think.
We forget that in the 90s, Ford decided, I believe it was in the Indianapolis area, they owned all the Ford dealerships in the Indianapolis area. They were Ford's stores. They were factory stores because they wanted to branch out into retail. And it was either 2 or 3 years after they decided to do this that they came to the realization that they are so much better at wholesaling vehicles than they are at retailing vehicles. And they sold the stores to individuals again. Many of your legacy manufacturers are really, really good at building and wholesaling vehicles. They are not equipped for the retail side of things. It is a whole different animal. And so, here's an example. The people I used to work for, my last job, those people, they had any number of dealerships, and they built a lot of new facilities. And with the old facilities, I believe 2 or 3 of their old facilities are leased to Tesla for Tesla experience centers and repair centers. So there are ways that these facilities could be used if we see the type of disruption that you think we'll see 15, 20, 30 years from now. Yes, there will be service centers and parts and repair centers, but they're not going to have to sit on 15-acre lots. I mean, the building could be the size of a Jiffy Lube at that point. It doesn't have to take up a lot of acreage like you do today, because you need all the acreage to display all the cars. So if it happens, will dealers maybe become delivery centers or repair centers for these manufacturers? Perhaps. I don't know what ultimately would happen to all these dealership facilities, but most of them are big and most of them sit on a lot of ground, and it's not necessarily a lot of ground where you say you'd want to build homes or something, because they're normally in a commercial area, and it's nobody's saying, hey, I want to be on the busiest highway where I live.
Yeah, that just shows you that there's a ton of money that's invested to this old model that we have going on, and they're going to fight as hard as they can to make it last as long as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but anyway, Ray, I have a tea time in about 40 minutes, so we're going to get off here. That's why we got collared shirts. First time you've probably ever seen me in a collared shirt.
It is.
Yeah, but we're going to go hit some balls and cuss at some trees.
Okay. You go have some fun. Shoot the round of your life. I want to report next Tuesday that it was the best round you ever had. Okay.
All right. So, well, I'm only playing 9 holes, so we can do that. We can just say I played 18 and just take my 9-hole score, and then I'll take a picture of it and send it to you.
Okay, that works for me.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week, Tuesday at 1:30. And Ray, hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next week, buddy.
You too, my friend. Thank you, everybody.